I never thought I'd be the guy telling a story like this. But here I am, typing it out because it's the only thing keeping me from smashing my phone into a million pieces. Her name's Alina. We'd been together for 3 years. 3 damn years. I thought we were solid. We had our fights, sure, but who doesn't? I loved her, man. I thought she loved me too. It all started 2 weeks ago. She was acting weird, distant, cold. I asked her if something was up, and she brushed it off, said she was just stressed with work. But my gut knew better. I ignored it, though, because I didn't want to be that paranoid boyfriend. I trusted her. God, what a joke. Then, last Friday, I got this anonymous text. Just a single screenshot. It was Alina, laughing, with this guy I'd never seen before. His arm was around her, and they were sitting way too close. The caption said, "He has no idea." That was it. Just 4 words, but they hit me like a truck. I confronted her that night. I expected tears, apologies, maybe even a lie. What I didn't expect was her to just stare at me, expressionless, like I was a stranger. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this," she said, almost bored. That's when I lost it. I shouted, threw my keys across the room. They hit the wall with this loud crack, and she flinched but didn't move. She just stood there, looking through me. I don't even know how long we yelled at each other. Everything came out: my anger, her excuses. It was like watching our whole relationship burn in front of me. And then she had the nerve to say she wasn't sure if she ever loved me. That's when I stopped shouting. It was like everything went cold. I just nodded, grabbed my jacket, and left. I didn't know where to go, so I just drove. Drove for hours, until I ran out of gas in the middle of nowhere. I slept in my car that night. When I came back the next morning, she was gone. Not just gone, everything of hers was gone too. Like she never existed. She left a note on the kitchen table. It was short, just like that damn text. "I'm sorry. It's over." I stared at that note for so long that the words started to blur. Then I did something I never thought I would. I grabbed my phone, found that number that sent me the text, and replied. "Who are you?" The response was instant. Someone who cares more about you than she ever did. And that's when things got even more messed up. Over the next few days, I got more texts, more screenshots, photos of her with this guy, laughing, kissing, being happy. Every image felt like a punch to the gut. And the whole time, this stranger kept texting me, saying things like, "You deserve better," and "She's not worth it." At first, I thought it was just some twisted way of making me feel better. But then, one day, they sent me a picture of my car parked outside my apartment. That's when I realized this wasn't just about Alina. Whoever this was, they were close. Too close. I started looking over my shoulder everywhere I went. I even thought about calling the cops. But what was I gonna say? "Hey, someone's texting me pictures of my ex in my car. Can you do something about it?" I knew they wouldn't care. Then last night, I got the worst text of all. It was a picture of Alina, asleep in bed, in my bed, with the caption, "Should I wake her up? I haven't been home since. I don't know what's waiting for me if I go back." And the worst part? I don't even care anymore. I'm too tired to care. But I know I'll have to face it eventually. And when I do, well, I guess I'll find out who sent those texts. I ended up crashing at my buddy Jarek's place after that last text. He didn't ask questions, which I was grateful for. He's the type of guy who knows when to talk and when to just hand you a beer and shut up. We watched some mindless action movie, but I didn't register a single scene. My mind was stuck on that picture of Alina in my bed. Who the hell took it? Why were they doing this to me? That night, I barely slept. I kept imagining someone sneaking into Jarek's place, standing over me while I slept, taking pictures of me like they did with Alina. It's like every noise in the apartment was amplified, and every shadow looked like a threat. By morning, I was a wreck. When Jarek finally noticed how bad I looked, he asked what was going on. I wanted to tell him everything, but something held me back. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear that he'd think I was losing my mind. So, I just told him I was dealing with some relationship drama and that I needed space. After a silent breakfast, I decided to go back to my place. I had to. I couldn't keep running from this. So, I drove back, half expecting to see something horrifying waiting for me. But when I pulled up, everything looked normal. Too normal. The moment I stepped inside, the silence hit me. That eerie, unsettling quiet that comes when you know something's off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. I walked through every room, searching for signs of her or him, but nothing was there. My apartment was empty, except for me. Even the sheets on my bed had been changed, like someone had tried to erase any trace of what happened. Then I saw it, a single envelope on my coffee table with my name scrawled on the front. No stamp, no return address, just my name. I opened it slowly, my hands shaking. Inside was a single sheet of paper. For words again. It's not over yet. No signature, no explanation. Just that cryptic message. I wanted to scream, but all that came out was a dry laugh. This had to be some kind of sick joke, right? Who would do this to someone? Who could hate me this much? And that's when the paranoia really started to set in. I couldn't help but think about all the people I might have pissed off over the years. Was it someone I knew? A coworker? An ex-friend? Some random person I cut off in traffic? My mind ran through every possibility, but nothing made sense. For days, I was on edge, jumping at every sound, checking my phone constantly, waiting for the next text, the next picture, the next threat. But nothing came, just silence, a whole week of it. I almost started to relax, telling myself that maybe it was all over, maybe whoever it was had moved on, maybe they got bored. But then, tonight, as I was sitting on my couch, trying to force down some food, my phone buzzed. A text. From Alina. My heart stopped. I didn't want to open it, but I couldn't not open it, you know? So I did. Let's talk. That's all she wrote. 2 words that felt like a bomb ticking down. I don't know what to do. Should I go? Should I ignore her? What if she knows who's behind all this? What if she's a part of it? But the worst part? There's a part of me that still wants to see her, to get some kind of closure, or maybe just to see if she's as messed up as I am right now. Maybe I want to hurt her back. Maybe I just want answers. I don't know. All I know is I can't keep living like this. I have to do something. Anything. So, I guess that's where I'm heading now. To meet her. See what she has to say. But I can't shake this feeling that whatever happens next is going to change everything. I sat in my car outside the cafe where Alina wanted to meet. It was one of those places we used to go all the time, back when things were good. Or at least when I thought they were good. Now, just looking at the place made me sick. I kept checking my phone, half hoping she'd cancel, half hoping she'd send another message that would give me an excuse to leave. But she didn't. She just left me hanging there with those 2 words. Let's talk. After what felt like an eternity, I finally forced myself out of the car. The air outside was cold, biting, and I realized I hadn't even bothered to grab a jacket. Didn't matter. I just needed to get this over with. When I walked in, she was already there, sitting in the corner booth. She looked different, almost like a stranger. Her hair was tied back, and she was wearing this oversized sweater that swallowed her up. But it was her eyes that got me. They were distant, hollow, like she was a million miles away. I sat down across from her, and for a minute, neither of us said anything. It was just this thick, uncomfortable silence. I couldn't tell if she was waiting for me to speak first, or if she just didn't know what to say. Either way, I was done waiting. So, talk, I finally said, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't want her to see how much this was killing me inside. She looked down at her coffee, like she was searching for the right words at the bottom of the cup. Then, after what felt like forever, she finally spoke. I messed up, Elias. I know that, but it's more complicated than you think. I almost laughed. Complicated? You think cheating on me and ghosting me is complicated? Enlighten me, Alina. She flinched, and for a second, I thought I saw real regret in her eyes. But then she sighed and shook her head. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I didn't want to hurt you, but things got out of control. Out of control? I leaned in, my voice dropping. You mean like the texts? The pictures? Who the hell is doing this to me? Her eyes flicked up to mine, and for the first time I saw fear there. Real, genuine fear. Elias, I don't know who it is, I swear, but I think I might know why. Why? I repeated, my heart pounding in my chest. Why would anyone do this? She hesitated, and I could see her struggling with something. Like there was this huge weight she didn't want to unload. But finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. The guy I was seeing, he's not who I thought he was. I broke it off, but I think he's the one behind all this. He's dangerous, Elias, and I think he's watching us both. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't know what to say, what to feel. There was this part of me that wanted to believe her, wanted to see her as a victim too. But another part of me just couldn't let go of the anger, the betrayal. So what? You dragged me into this mess. And now I'm supposed to just forgive you? She shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to warn you. Be careful, Elias. He's not done with either of us. I sat back, my mind spinning. If what she was saying was true, then this wasn't just about her cheating. This was something darker, something more twisted than I'd imagined, and I had no idea how deep it went. What do you want me to do, Alina? I asked quietly. What are you expecting from me? She looked at me, tears now streaming down her face. I don't know. I'm scared, Elias. I don't know what to do. I stared at her. The girl I'd loved for 3 years, now just a mess of fear and regret in front of me. I wanted to scream at her, to make her feel the pain she'd caused me. But all I felt was empty. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't want to check it, but I had to. When I pulled it out, there was another message from that unknown number. Too late. My blood ran cold. I showed the message to Alina, and her face went white. She started to say something, but before the words could come out, a loud crash echoed through the cafe. We both jumped, and when I turned, I saw the shattered front window, glass scattered across the floor. People were screaming, ducking under tables. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Alina grabbed my arm, her grip tight and trembling. Elias, we have to go. Now. I didn't argue. We bolted out of the cafe into the night with no idea where to go or what to do. All I knew was that everything had just gotten a whole lot worse, and there was no turning back. We ran. I don't even remember how far or for how long, but the cold air burned my lungs, and my legs felt like they were going to give out. Eventually, we ended up in some empty parking lot, surrounded by nothing but silence and dark, lifeless buildings. I bent over, trying to catch my breath, while Alina paced back and forth, her eyes wide and wild. What the hell was that? I finally gasped, my voice rough. Was it him? She nodded, her face pale. It has to be. I told you, Elias, he's dangerous. He's not going to stop until... Until what? I cut her off, standing up straight and facing her. What does he want? Why is he doing this? She stopped pacing and looked at me, tears still clinging to her lashes. I don't know. I thought he was just, normal. But after I ended things, he started acting weird, obsessive. Then the texts started coming. And now this. I clenched my fists, trying to push down the anger boiling inside me. You should have told me, Alina. You should have warned me before it got this far. She flinched at my words, and for a moment, I regretted saying them. But then I reminded myself that I had every right to be angry. This whole mess was partly her fault. What do we do now? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't have an answer. I was just as lost as she was. Part of me wanted to go to the police, but I knew how that would play out. They'd ask a lot of questions, maybe take a statement, but ultimately do nothing. It'd be just another case of we'll look into it, while we waited for something worse to happen. And then there was the other part of me, the part that didn't want to hide or run anymore, the part that wanted to face this guy head on, find out who he was and make him stop. But I didn't even know where to start. I was in over my head, and so was she. Finally, I spoke, my voice low and firm. We need to figure out who this guy is. We can't just keep running. If we know who he is, maybe we can stop him. Alina shook her head, fear flashing in her eyes. You don't understand, Elias. He's not someone you can just confront. He has connections, people who do things for him. What kind of things? I asked, my heart pounding. I didn't like where this was going. She hesitated, looking away, but then she answered. He used to brag about it. How he could make people disappear, how no one would ever find out. I thought it was just talk, you know? But now, I don't know anymore. I stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. This was more than just some jealous ex. This guy was dangerous, and we were in way over our heads. But there was no going back now. We had to do something. Okay, I said slowly, trying to think. Do you have anything on him? Anything we can use? A name? A number? Anything? She shook her head, biting her lip. No. I know his first name, Damien, but that's it. He never told me his last name, and he always used a different number when he called. I never knew where he lived either. Damien, I repeated, trying to commit it to memory. It wasn't much, but it was a start. What about the places you met up? Did he ever take you somewhere specific? She thought for a moment, then nodded. There's this bar, on the edge of town, kind of a sketchy place. We met there a few times. He always seemed to know the owner. A bar. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. At least it gave us a place to start. All right, I said, determination creeping into my voice. We'll go there. Maybe someone knows something about him. Alina's eyes widened in fear. You're serious? You really want to go looking for him? I nodded. We don't have a choice, Alina. If we keep running, he'll just keep coming after us. This is the only way to stop him. She hesitated, then finally nodded, though I could see the fear in her eyes. Okay, we'll go. But if anything feels off, we leave. Promise me that. Promise, I said, though I wasn't sure how much I meant it. We got back into my car, and as I drove towards the bar, the tension between us grew thicker. Neither of us spoke, both lost in our own thoughts. The city lights blurred past us, the streets growing darker and more deserted the closer we got to the outskirts of town. When we finally pulled up in front of the bar, it was exactly what I'd expected. A rundown dive with flickering neon lights and a half-empty parking lot. The kind of place where people went to forget their problems or make new ones. Alina looked at me, her face pale in the dim light. Are you sure about this? I took a deep breath and nodded. Yeah, let's just see what we can find out. We got out of the car and headed inside, the heavy door creaking as we pushed it open. The place reeked of stale beer and cigarette smoke, and the few patrons inside barely glanced our way as we walked in. A tired-looking bartender eyed us from behind the bar, but didn't say anything. We found a booth in the back, away from the few regulars hunched over their drinks. Alina sat down, fidgeting with her hands, while I scanned the room, trying to look casual. After a few minutes, the bartender came over, wiping his hands on a dirty rag. What'll it be? I ordered a couple of beers, figuring it was better to blend in, and waited until he walked away before leaning in close to Alina. Do you see anyone who looks familiar? She shook her head, glancing around nervously. No, I don't think so. I was about to ask her something else when the door to the bar swung open, and a group of guys walked in. Rough-looking types, all leather jackets and bad attitudes. One of them caught my eye, a tall guy with a shaved head and a tattoo snaking up his neck. He looked around the room, then locked eyes with me for a split second before turning to the bartender. Alina's grip on my arm tightened, and I could feel her trembling. That's him, she whispered. That's Damien. I felt my heart rate spike, but I forced myself to stay calm. This was the guy who'd turned my life upside down, the guy who'd been tormenting us for weeks, and now he was standing just a few feet away. What do we do? Alina whispered, panic rising in her voice. I didn't know. Confronting him here in this bar didn't seem like a good idea, but letting him walk out of here without answers felt even worse. Then, as if sensing our presence, Damien turned and looked straight at us. His lips curled into a cold, knowing smile. He walked toward our booth, and every step he took felt like a countdown to something terrible. When he finally stood in front of us, he didn't say anything at first, just stared. that twisted smile still on his face. Well, he finally said, his voice smooth and low. Didn't expect to see you two here. What brings you out to a place like this? I opened my mouth to speak, but the words got stuck in my throat. Alina was frozen beside me, her eyes wide with fear. Damien leaned in closer, his smile widening. What's the matter, Elias? Cat got your tongue? Or maybe you're just realizing how deep you're in. The tension was unbearable, and for a moment, I didn't know if I was going to punch him or run. But then he laughed, a cold, sharp sound that sent chills down my spine. Don't worry, he said, straightening up. I'm not here to cause trouble. Not tonight, anyway. But you might want to watch your backs. You never know who's watching. With that, he turned and walked away, his entourage following behind him like a pack of wolves. The door swung shut behind them, and just like that, they were gone. Alina let out a shaky breath, her hands still trembling. Elias, what do we do now? I stared at the door, Damien's words echoing in my head. We were in deeper than I'd ever imagined. And as much as I wanted to protect us both, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being played, that this was just the beginning of something far worse. I don't know, I finally said, my voice barely a whisper, but whatever happens next, we have to be ready for it. And that's when I realized we weren't just running from Damien anymore. We were trapped in his game, and I had no idea how to win.